Let's bring in Carice, Witte, the founder and executive director of Signal, a Sino-Israel global network. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, the leaders from China and Saudi aligned on a lot of policy. They released a hefty statement outlining a range of political issues that they are in agreement on, like space research, digital economy, infrastructure, Iran's nuclear program, the Yemen war, and the list goes on. Talk to us about what are some of the key things you found from these meetings and how strong the ties between the Arab states and China can become.
Well, it's very interesting how much effort and commitment China is showing to the Gulf. Many have spoken about China's 25-year, $400 billion agreement with Iran, but we see very little actually happening there. And we see a lot more investment in both sides between Saudi Arabia and China. $65 billion in annual trade. There is a huge amount of investment. The Chinese are building their new city, Neo. There is a lot of opportunity for economic and business development. But on the political side, that I think is where Israel should be more concerned and tuned in. China signed on to the Global Development Initiative, which is sort of a mix between a UN-styled approach and the Belt and Road Initiative of China, and aiming to improve development globally, which is certainly welcome, and the Global Security Initiative, which talks about a new security architecture for the Middle East. That's something that Israel would definitely want to pay close attention to. At the same time, the foreign minister of Saudi Arabia noted in the midst of all this that their closest partner and ally is the United States. So I think that as much as it's very developed and a wide range of cooperation between China and Saudi Arabia in the offing, number one, we need to see what actually happens and where the money actually goes. And number two, we need to remember that the security oversight in the region is very much still dependent upon the United States.
Well, let's talk about the United States for a second. Both China and Saudi Arabia say they have big plans for security and oil as well, and agreeing to cooperate on a lot of peaceful uses for nuclear energy that they want to develop into modern technologies like artificial intelligence. So what does this mean for countries like the United States, who has seen a decline in their relationship with China, who is in an interesting dance with Saudi Arabia because of what each country wants? So what about the United States here?
Well, the United States' pressure on human rights puts the relationship with Saudi Arabia in a constant state of tension. Mohammed bin Salman made it very clear that he didn't like some of the accusations and treatment that came from the U.S. We saw how he received Biden, which was the local governor was the only reception Biden received when he got off the plane. A great deal of pomp and circumstance over President Xi's visit that very much looked like the Trump visit. So it's not necessarily U.S., but more maybe the individual in the chair, and also how much pressure and how much perception of human rights issues are going to be at the forefront of U.S. policy.
And finally, China leaving a zero COVID era. President Xi traveling around the world without a mask, we've seen in recent weeks. What is the signal for China after this insular COVID policy that they've had for nearly 3 years? We've got about 30 seconds left.
Well, as I wrote a week ago, the COVID was on its way out, COVID zero policy. It's well on its way out now. Almost all of the hardcore COVID policies have been ratcheted back. We have lower and lower rate of lockdowns. The codes that you needed to get into all public places and public transportations have been ended. Everybody is free to move now, or almost everybody. And there's what they're calling a tsunami of Omicron infecting the population. So COVID zero is out, and COVID is definitely in.
Carice, Witte, thank you.